come on. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ and Friends. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and my guest today is Dr. James Thompson. He has a wonderful book which is called Fearless Wellness, and he is going to be talking about that book today and how to be fearless and thrive at any age. Please welcome him to the show. It's nice to meet you, and I'm blown away to know that you live not too far from me.
I am too, actually, but I did know that before coming on, so I'm getting a kick out of it. Thanks.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that is fantastic. But unfortunately, you just told me you are retired from private practice.
Yes, yes. I spent 34 years practicing allergy, asthma, and immunology in the Chicago area and relocated here last year to be closer to my grandchild, who is now 4 years of
Wow.
age.
What are the chances that two people born and raised in Chicago both ended up here?
My mom, who rest in peace, would say that was divine order.
Nice. Well, in Yiddish, and I'm Jewish, we would say it's beshert, meant to be. So
Okay.
I listen here, and I actually, you know what? I have like 4 minutes left on your book, but I actually got it on Audible, Fearless
Uh,
Wellness, and I would like you to hold it up and show the audience the cover so that we can put a link in for them to get it.
oh, sure. Here we go. Let's see how.
Nice, nice. So, before we even get into the book, if you don't mind, the audience may not be familiar with you yet. Tell them a little bit about your journey of being a conventional medical doctor to finding and adopting the plant-based diet.
Sure, thank you. Yes, I knew I wanted to be a doctor, I think from about the fifth grade. I I did a science project on the heart and won the science fair at my local grade school, and then went to the district and won the district, and then got to go to the Museum of Science and Industry.
Oh
And
my God, that was my favorite museum growing up. Remember Paul Bunyan's Canyon?
yes, yes,
And, and,
yes, I
and you know
do.
the chicks that you could watch being, I mean, oh my God, what fond memories. The Shed Aquarium and the
The
museum is
the field
nothing.
museum.
I'm
Oh,
sorry, I've been to the Carnegie Science Center. There is no museum in the world as good as the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago.
yes, I remember that growing up too, and going down at the coal mines. That was
That was
something.
my favorite, my fondest memory as a child. And often with school, they would take us there on field trips.
Mhm. I even like the agricultural section. You go into that farm section, and
Oh,
as I think about that now, and I think about what I think about farm agriculture now with CAFOs and what's
yeah.
happening with the cattle, it's interesting.
You're making me feel nostalgic because now I'm starting to think about Marshall Fields and Frango Mints, my two favorite things from Chicago.
I used to like those Frango mints too.
Oh
I
my,
thought for a while eating the dark chocolate ones, was healthier.
yeah, yeah. Well, they're not vegan, but I wasn't vegan before the age of
Yeah.
17, but they sure were delicious.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
in my book, I actually make a Frango Mint pie. It's healthy, whole food, plant-based, gluten-free. So I make my own version, and I got to serve it to Dr. Terry Mason once.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, if you come to our meetups, I'll make you one.
I'm definitely going to do that.
Okay. Oh, so, because I'm sorry to interrupt,
Okay.
but
All right.
continue the
Okay. No,
story.
that's okay.
Okay.
I don't mind tangents. uh, yeah, so I started out with that science program, and then that was a seed that just grew over time. And so by the time I was entering high school, I knew I wanted to be a medical doctor, and that's what I focused on mostly science classes, and some of my math classes kind of went down the drain because I was studying science so much. But then I went to University of Illinois for college as pre-med, and 4 years later I was to Washington University in St. Louis Medical School. And I thought at that time I wanted to treat asthma because one of my friends had passed, a person I dated had passed from asthma, and it just made me very curious. Plus, my grandfather had asthma, and he ended up dying from asthma in his 80s. So I became an asthma doctor, speeding forward. And then went into practice for many years. And what I liked about allergy is it really allowed me time as a specialist to delve into people's histories, their family history, their environmental history. And it kind of set me up straight for where I am now because that's so important in really helping people is knowing those people. They're not only just their medical history, but their past social history and their environmental history. But my eyes didn't really open until after a Daniel fast, about 15 years ago in my church, my local church. First it was a 10-day, then it was a 21-day. And I noticed that after a couple of weeks, I felt rejuvenated. I was sleeping better. Joints that had been getting strained and stressed from running miles, trying to stay on low amounts of blood pressure medicine, tend to turn around and they weren't aching. And so that was the shot across the bow for me because the Daniel fast, as it was set up at my church, was fasting from from the sun up until 5 p.m. for 21 days. And when you break the fast, it was some water fast or tea or coffee. But when you break the fast, you had to then eat a plant-based meal. So it occurred to me that something about this combination of fasting and prayer and eating, high nutritional food and not having alcohol, caffeine, and meat and dairy must be the magic formula. But I thought that it had more to do with nutrition than anything, and I didn't share that with my pastor, but I was like, it's something about this nutrition. So that tended to spark my interest in learning more. And so I'd spent a year in learning about integrative nutrition from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition out in New York. It was online, 6 hours a week. And that's when I really became very clear that I didn't know much about nutrition and that I was doing my patients for 25 years a disservice by not asking them about what they eat, and what they do, and talking and discussing with them from a holistic standpoint what's going on and how it relates to the problem that they were presenting with. So that 8 years ago, I turned that corner and started inputting that into my practice. Only got to do it for 8 years or 25 years of not doing it, but I felt like, okay, when I retire, I'm going to continue that effort. So now I'm medical director of a 501(c)(3) foundation that primarily focuses on underserved communities to provide information and services that centers around nutrition. And I tend to coordinate that. And I also am a specialized host for a support group online called Plant-Based Support. It used to be called Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group, but now it's plant-based support. And it's a wonderful community of people, like-minded and specialists and allied health that really focus and provide a safe space for people to discuss their plant-based needs and plant-based intentions.
Nice. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's I wish we had found you earlier, the plant-based world. But it's never too late. You still can make a huge contribution, and you are, especially with this book. Well, first of all, congratulations on your book. I've heard you say that it's not just a health manual, it's really a life manual. So let's start with what inspired you to write Fearless Wellness.
Well, I noticed, well, first of all, during the pandemic, I decided to do a lot of blogging because we weren't seeing people face to face. It was just those little segments of time with the virtual visits. And it was frustrating because I had so much more to talk with patients about, especially since I turned that leaf of really wanting to provide more than just sick care, provide preventive care, get to the root cause, talk to them about what they need to eat and other things they needed to do. So I decided I needed another access for them. And so I created an online site, and then I wanted to put that information and refer them to that site for things that I didn't have time to discuss with them in person or in the virtual space. And so I accrued a lot of information, and at some point I thought, well, how do I string this together from a holistic standpoint? And that's how the acronym came. And interestingly, it's not, I stand on the shoulders of so many others. We share, I'm sure, the same mentors. There's Dr. Greger, Dr. Furman, Dr. Clapper. There's all these gurus out there. But I wanted to put it together in something that wasn't just focused on diet, that was holistic, because it's not all about diet. There are people, if you're in a bad relationship, if you don't have movement, if you don't have some spiritual connection, if you don't have purpose, then you can eat all the healthy food you want, but you're not going to be fulfilled. You're not going to be thriving. And that's what attracted me to watch you all these years, Chef AJ, because I could tell you were thriving. And some people, I think don't really know the difference between thriving and just living. Living is when you just, you're sustaining your biological functions. Yes, you're eating, usually without much discretion. You may be exercising, but inconsistently. But thriving is where you actually have stamina, you have the energy and vitality, and you have purpose, and you have joy in what you're doing. And that exuded whenever I tune into your shows, I mean, this person is thriving. And so uh, I wanted to put this into a book form from a holistic standpoint where people would get information about things they should consider eating and not eating, but also the other aspects of health, the ones that don't fit on the plate, the ones that involve what you just do with your body, your actions. And so that really kind of solidified my interest in writing a book.
Yeah. Well, I love acronyms. Yeah, and I'm sure you know Dr. Columbus Batiste, and he uses selfish as his acronym. So
Yes.
tell us, Fearless, what is the Fearless model?
Now let me tell you, I watched the program with Dr. Batista. As you know, he's in California too, and I really love to meet him. I had a chance to meet Dr. Tim Williams before when he was at Rush in Chicago. He's just these cardiologists that go plant based are just incredible people. But anyway, the Fearless stands for it's 8 pillars. The F is for food, and it's I put it first because I thought it's most important. It carries the most weight. Even if you don't do a lot of the other, if you don't follow a lot of other pillars, if you follow to the line food, eating plant based, you actually achieve a lot, but not 100%. So anyway, so food, plant based, and it's not a vegan book. I think you've explained many times on your show, that vegan is not a diet. It's a social justice movement, and you can be 100% vegan and eat potato chips, Coca-Cola, and Oreo cookies that don't have dairy or meat or anything in it. But you're still a vegan. But if you're a healthy vegan, if you're trying to be a healthy person, you'll eat whole food, plant-based, and perhaps be vegan. And but that's not what I'm trying to do with the book. I'm trying to just get people to meet people where they are. And so that's why in some of the recipes, which you didn't find on Audible, I'm sorry about that, did have some oil in them. It's not a SOS free book, but it's a book to guide you down that path to make better choices. So F is for food, plant-based, plant forward. The E is for exercise. I think any body and nutrition now will tell you, and mostly, and all the cardiologists will tell you that exercise is very important, not just for your bones and not just for your muscle and bones, but also for your, and your heart, but for your brain. And so exercise is crucial, regular exercise. And I go into detail about that. And then the A is for avoiding toxins. Now, many people think, oh yeah, okay, he's probably talking about alcohol and tobacco. Yes, but I'm also talking about those 10,000 food additives, that find their way to our foods that haven't been, many of which have not been tested, that are probably a reason for some of the problems we're having. So avoiding a lot of those food additives and toxins. And then the R is for restorative sleep, which many cardiologists, including Dr. Kim Williams, will say is probably the third most important thing next to food and then exercise is getting adequate sleep. 7 to 9 hours for adults. Young children need a little more. And then there's the L is for lessening stress, very important. That's adopted as part of Dr. Batiste's acronym, and as well as the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. They have a 6 pillar acronym. So all of these kind of overlap. But lessening stress, that's yoga, meditation, mindfulness. And then there's the second E is what you don't find in many other constructs, and that is engaging your mind. And that was kind of with my own personal interest because I know when you retire, there are a number of people that retire to the couch or to the golf course, crossword puzzles, things like that. There's nothing wrong with crossword puzzles, but you need to have, as the Sherzais would say, I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Dean and Aisha Sherzai, that you need to have something that's more complex that involves interaction of multiple areas of your brain that's challenging, that has purpose. So when you work on a community project, that's something that's engaging your mind. When you write a book, you learn how to play an instrument, you learn a new language. So that's an important part to keep your brain healthy, brain exercises. And then the last two S's, social energy. And there's some hormones that go up when we collaborate for the good of others, which I'm doing. I'm starting to do now in the Sacramento area, where you may have a rise in your oxytocin, your serotonin, the feel good contentment hormone, by being with others, by the touch of others, by being around others, just discussing things, sharing things. And then the last S certainly is not the least. It's I think the first in Dr. Columbus Batiste's acronym. That's spirituality, spiritual connectivity. Yeah, I think we all need to have something that keeps us grounded, that something we can call on in times of need, that reminds us about gratitude and graciousness. And it's something that I found personally I can't do without. And it doesn't have to be necessarily a religion. Maybe something more philosophical for people, yoga, but something that is that has an existential meaning to you, and that you can rely on.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful and comprehensive. We can talk about each one individually if you like, but I wanted to ask you because doctors always love looking at the research. I love how you mentioned Dr. Kim Williams a few times, and one of the things he's often said, which I love, is there's two kinds of cardiologists, vegan and those who haven't read the data. While you were changing your diet, was there anything compelling in the medical literature that really kind of sealed the deal for you?
Well, I didn't mention that I was on three blood pressure medications for 25 years before my eyes were open to the fact that you can actually reverse hypertension. You can actually reverse type 2 diabetes and many diseases out there by lifestyle and diet. And so that was the that was the wind beneath my wings to learn more. And that's the key. To me, there are a handful of elements to being successful in this journey. One is mindset. So once I had the mindset, and what the underpinning of mindset is realizing what your why is. And my why was, I know that there aren't many people over 65 in my males over 65 in my family that are alive. I go to family reunions and weddings and all that, and there aren't that many older men. And then two, both my parents had dementia. One had Lewy bodies and died from it. My mother had Alzheimer's. And I've learned that eating plant-based can reduce those risks from Dr. Dean Ornish, and from the Shares Eyes, Dr. Shares Eyes, Dr. Aisha and her husband, Dr. Shares Eye. So I learned these things, and the more I learned, the more I realized I need to learn more. But then the third factor that helped me was knowing that I needed support too, and that's why I wanted to join a plant-based support group. And I've always looked to be with other people to share our experiences. And then lastly is preparation, learning that I needed to plan ahead, plan and batch cook and things like that. So my research was based on looking at the reports, publications, and presentations by people like Dr. Tim Williams, by people like Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. Neil Barnard, Dr. Michael Claper, Dr. John McDougall. These are all people, and many more, that kind of filled in many of the blanks for me, as well as reading books. How Not to Die was so important. How Not to Age, I really love. It gets to the granular, it gets to the nitty gritty. I'm really practicing personally precision medicine now. Dr. Greger's been instrumental in that. And so by reading these books, Dr. T. Colin Campbell's book, keeping up with that type of a resource has really helped me.
Nice. Thank you. Well, let's go over the acronym of Fearless one at a time, and I can ask you individual questions on each of them. So, F of Fearless is for food. What would be one or two swaps that people, especially people like over 60, can make this week that will help them feel better, age better?
Well, one would be to swap out dairy. I think it's so important. I mean, you're familiar with Dr. Milton Mills, I'm sure. Dairy poses such a great risk. It's a source of saturated fat. It's extra calories we don't need. So if we swapped out dairy for plant-based milk and plants, more servings of plants, then I think that's a great start. And if you think about it, that shouldn't be a hard swap. I mean, there's not that big of a difference in taste with milk. And usually we're not drinking just whole cups of milk anyway at our ages. And I guess I'm speculating on that, but generally putting milk in things. There's milk, dairy product, other dairy products. So if we can not only swap out the milk and avoid the dairy products, find a healthy vegan cheese, things like that, nutritional yeast, then I think that's a big step. The other thing I would say would be to cut out processed meats. Those are the two things I would say. Cutting out the processed meat. That solves another problem too, which is a major one, and that is how much sodium how much salt we consume. and we'll consume a lot less salt if we cut out the meat, especially those processed meat. What am I talking about? The ham, the bacon, the cold cuts, the salami, the sausage, the hot dogs. You know, this is probably making a lot of people go, oh no, no, I can't do that. But really, those aren't necessary. Those aren't essential foods, and they are killing us. So I think if we can get, there are veggie dogs. I love the carrot dogs. You know what really makes a hot dog good? All the trimmings,
Yep.
and the texture. Have you had a carrot dog before?
I have. Aren't they fun? Because it's all the
Oh my
condiments that make
gosh.
burgers and
Exactly. Exactly. So I think people can find that they can rehabilitate their taste buds. That's what I found. I grew up on the same thing that many other people around me grew up, soul food and, on, pork and all that stuff, the bacon. I used to love bacon and sausage, but I have found substitutes. There's tempeh now that you can season in a way that it tastes like bacon. There are things you can do with mushrooms that can make them taste like burgers, and things you can do with um, a number of seitan. So there's, it's challenging when you don't know these things, but that's the thing, is to become knowledgeable.
nice. Thank you. And exercise, that is the second letter in the fearless model. So if somebody just has never exercised, or maybe they're exhausted from an illness or treatment, what's the minimum daily effective dose?
Well, and I borrowed this information from Dr. Michael Greger, who combs through all kinds of research articles, and it appears that it's not a one shoe fit all for everyone, but generally speaking, uh, 20 to 30 minutes, 5 days a week can get the job done. And what helps even more to slow down aging, possibly reverse biological aging, is to either do a kind of interval type, if you're capable of it, an interval type of aerobic, and then you kind of push it to maybe 60, 70% of what you can do, and then walk, that type of thing. If it's rather walk and running, walk and jogging, or even you can do that on a speed bike, where you do intervals of pushing it, and then pulling back, or doing moderate exercise. What is moderate exercise? It's about 60% of your best. And there are formulas for this, 220 minus your age, and then get the percentage. That's how you can figure those percentages out. But moderate exercise for 20 to 30 minutes. And this is something also that Dr. Batista had mentioned in one of your programs, that this is a way that you can exercise. But the thing about exercise is consistency. And think it's that I don't think it's that good to just join a gym and all that, although it's okay if that's what motivates you. But then, there are times if you can't get to that gym, you get off track. So I think letting your home or your neighborhood be your gym is a lot better in terms of you being consistent. I know that's been my experience.
Nice. What do you do for exercise?
I actually do a run walk for an hour in the mornings. Now it's easier to do that when you're retired, but I would get up earlier when I was not retired, when I was working, to get my workout in. Fortunately, I am a morning person, so my body clock makes my eyes pop open at about between 5 and 5:30 in the morning. And so I get out there and I do the walk run. It used to be run for many years. It was running. I used to run several miles. I ran one marathon. Unfortunately, that Chicago one in 2007, they ran out of water and it was 88 degrees.
Hmm.
And I had to walk the last 6 miles because they were announcing there are no more paramedics to take anybody that collapsed from exhaustion, from heat exhaustion. But so that was my experience with marathon. But I used to run a lot, but then the knees started getting a little bad. Plant-based would really help bring my knees back to my norms. But now I think I'm smart enough to know I don't need to be pounding concrete every day. So I will do an hour of walk running. I'll run 60% maximum for about, 30 seconds to a minute, then walk, and sometimes longer. But I try to do that 5 to 6 times per week, 5 to 6 days a week. And then I do push-ups and sit-ups and some weights that aren't too heavy, because weight-bearing exercises are important for those bones and joints. And Dr. Barnard has said you need to give your bones a reason to live, and that's the other half, other than eating those green leafy vegetables for the calcium and getting that vitamin D in. You want to also do strength exercise.
Thanks. Okay, so the A in fearless.
So the A, avoidance. So certainly we have found that any level of drinking alcohol is a hit to your health. They talk about that J curve where it used to be thought that some red wine or a little alcohol would give you better cardiac, would lower your cardiac risk, but that apparently was not true when they debunked it. So I avoid alcohol. I might indulge a little bit at a wedding or something, a little sip of champagne or something, but for the most part, avoiding those kinds of toxins that are not necessary for your health and that can be a hit to your health. We know for breast cancer that any form of alcohol is not good, and for other cancers. At any rate, the other one be tobacco, not smoking, and that's in the ACLM, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. That's one of their pillars. Don't smoke, and if you're smoking, try smoking cessation. And then, as I mentioned, it goes beyond that. Those food toxins. Read labels. You had someone that's my colleague that also was on our plant-based support online group, Sid Notter. She, a
She's
wonderful
watching
plant.
live. She says she's reading your book and she's watching live.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh my gosh, she has these wonderful classes on label reading. And if you become a label reader, you really step up your health and you can avoid some of these toxins too, these compounds you don't know, you can't pronounce that have all kinds of preservatives and emulsifiers. So really shopping in the periphery of the store where the produce section and the dried good bean section, you want to hang out there mostly and do very little shopping for the highly processed. There are some processed foods inside, as Sid Norton would tell you, that are okay. But reading labels to make sure. And her program for reading labels is just off the chain. I have to
Mm,
say that. And then there's what do we? Okay, so that's for avoiding toxins. Yes.
yeah, thank you. And then there's two S's, and one of them is stress or stress
Yeah,
avoidance.
avoiding stress, because we know there are some stressors we can't avoid. But I think, go for the low hanging fruit. Try to avoid the stresses you can. Like some of us have a problem saying no. Oh, will you come to and speak here? Oh, will you come to this place? And that used to be my problem. I wanted to accommodate everybody. I bet you're that kind of person too, Chef
Yep,
H.
absolutely.
but yeah, but you have to draw that line when it starts to infringe on your own health and you're stressed. Because we know there's some stressors we don't have control. We don't have control over what's going on politically other than using our vote, but sometimes that it's not enough, and we don't have control over many other things, but the ones we do we should try to control and eliminate if we can. And then the ones we can't, what we do is we try to make our bodies more robust to deal with those stress. There's something called the CTRA response.
Yes, Dr. Matt Letterman has talked about it based on the work
Oh,
of Dr. Stephen Cole from UCLA, and I'm so trying to get him on the show, but he says he's too busy. Yes, thank you for talking about the CTRA response.
yeah, that stands for conserved transcriptional response to adversity. And that's a committee of genes. It's not one gene. It's a committee of genes. There are some situations where one gene dictates your ill health, like sickle cell, cystic fibrosis, Huntington's chorea. Those are those are what Dr. Barnard calls the dictator genes. But then there's some genes by committee, which this is one, and diabetes and many other chronic diseases are, where there's a cadre of genes that work together, and they are influenced by lifestyle and diet. So exercise helps that to reduce, to help your body's response. Rest, getting proper rest, eating healthy food. These are all things that collectively can enhance your robustness, makes you more robust to stress. And we know that 70% of our immune system, I'm an immunologist, so that's sensitive area for me. 70% of our immune system is in the gut. So we know how important it is to make selections of food that help to support and not hurt our immune system, which then can give us back those short chain fatty acids from the microbiome that helps our body and our brain deal with stress. So, yes, stress relief. I mentioned in the chapter how yoga and how meditation and mindfulness can actually tie into helping how your body deals with stress beyond what some of the other pillars can do, like rest and what have you.
Yeah, well, speaking of rest, one of the S's is sleep.
Right. Exactly. And there's a right in California, you may have heard of him, Dr. Matt Walker at UCLA Sleep Center.
Yep,
Book
he wrote a book called Why We Sleep.
yes. I read that book, and that was the backbone of the tips I give at the end of that chapter. in terms of sleep hygiene, things that we can do to help with the duration and the quality of our sleep. And I think that's so important because when we sleep, that's when those files from the day's activities, those documents get put into files so we can recall them. And that's when our creative zones get a chance to retool. And there's so many things that happen when we sleep. Even our microbiome needs a rest, having the proper number of hours of sleep. So I can't say enough about that. That's actually my Achilles heel because usually it's 6 hours for me, and I used to be convinced that well, that's my body clock. It's 6 hours. No, I need to set myself up for success to get at least 7, and I'm still working on that.
Yep. Actually, I just realized I went out of order because after avoiding toxins, it was sleep. You put sleep under R, not S for
Yeah,
restorative sleep.
that's okay. We got
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
That's
And
okay.
then and then the stress was L for lessening stress. So sorry
Ah,
about that. But
no,
I'm
that's
not
okay.
okay. There's a lot of letters in fearless, but E, engaging the mind. And I know this is something the Shirzais talk about too.
Yes, they do, and I'm 100% on board with what they say. I listen to them, I learn from them. They have some publications too, and as I mentioned, I'm very sensitive to that, having both parents that had dementia, and so I'm trying to do what I can. I haven't done the genetic analysis to see if I have the alleles, but irrespective, I know I'm going to lead my life this way. And I'm very encouraged by Dr. Dean Ornish's study on Alzheimer's patients. They were patients that had some mild cognitive impairment and some that had early Alzheimer's that had improvement. I think about 70% improved. And often in these studies, like we saw with Dr. Esselstyn in his studies on people that had severe heart disease, is the ones that don't improve much tend to be the ones that didn't follow the plan as intensely, So I'm very encouraged by all that because I think the medications for dementia now are still fall way short of expectations. But lifestyle and diet that can really make a difference, and that's what engaging your mind is about, reducing the risk for those dementias.
Yeah. Well, the next one is about engaging other things other than your mind. You talk about social connectivity, and I like the story in your book about your mom playing bingo
Oh, yeah.
because that's kind of hitting
Yeah.
both. It's engaging your mind and it's social connectivity.
Yes, yes. And she was always one that liked to be around other people. And so when we went through the pandemic and we had to pull her out of this home, it wasn't a nursing home, it was a senior center, more of a senior center, because we had working, I had siblings that helped. She didn't have as much social engagement, and she was someone that thrived when she had social engagement. Whether it's bingo, whether it's exercising with other people, whether it's taking walks with people, those things can be so healthy for us. Isolation is really not good. And that's why a lot of us suffered during the pandemic. But we're out of that part now. And so really doing as much as we can to be around other people. And especially when you're doing something collaboratively with some other people that has for a common good, that's just very fulfilling.
Thank you. And then this one is really important. I think, well, some people may not say so, but the spiritual connectivity. So, what does that look like for people?
It may look like different things for people. For me, I speak personally. I am Christian, and I feel that that is foundational for me in terms of helping others, in terms of being around others, and being gracious and having gratitude, even at times when things are not going so well. That's one thing that's really helped me. Whenever I'm down about something, there have been a number of things. It hit me hard when my parents died because I felt that had I known what I know now, 10, 15 years ago, I might have made a difference for them. But I don't dwell on it because I feel like, well, I have the opportunity to make a difference now for others, other
You sure
people
do. And you,
that,
you, you maybe have more time now than you would have before.
right, right. And so those things, I think being grounded and having the gratitude from my spirituality really helps. I remember I write in the book too. I remember my mom um, was tending my brother. I have a brother. I'm 15 years older then, and he had diagnosed with immunoblastic lymphoma and was told by his doctors he had 6 months to live. And I mean, we were beside ourselves. We were a very close family. I was the oldest of five, And at one point, he had a pneumonia complicating his chemotherapy, and um, I thought I thought he had the look of death in his eyes, and so we were all kind of losing it. And one person blurted out, "Well, why him?" One of my siblings or a close friend, and my mom said very sternly, "Why not him? Would I wish this on anybody else?" And there was a silence for several seconds, and then it just occurred to us that is some deep faith. And she just knew in her heart the right thing was going to happen. He was going to either pass or he was going to survive, but either way, she knew it was God's will. And he survived, and he's still doing. This was in 1993 and 94, and he's alive and well doing now. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
Did anyone else in your family adopt a plant-based diet or lifestyle when you started going plant-based?
no.
No.
Um, well, I should say not. Well, they increased their servings of plants, and they've kind of toyed with a little bit. But my family is really holding on to that cultural, historical, addictive need for dairy and meat. And I'm sad to say that, but also my faith has helped me not get depressed about it because I think that it's just taking them a while. And then I look in the mirror, you know. I mean, look how long it took me. I'm a physician. I know about human body functions and all that. And it took me to my mid to late 50s to realize what I needed to do. So how can I be impatient with anybody else? So
Absolutely. So your Thanksgiving's coming up in a few weeks. What are you going to do how are you going to navigate the holidays?
well, although my family has not embraced going plant-based, they embrace that I am, and they do modify the meals so that I can participate and be engaged with whatever is going on. And they will eat more healthy during those times. So I look at it, I flip it around, it's always glasses half full or half empty. I think half full because by my influence, they're going to have a healthier menu there. And then I'm going to contribute to that. I'm going to make some dish I think they'll really like. It won't be real bland. I may add a little salt to it, may add a little olive oil, but I'm going to try to make something also that they'll enjoy that's healthier than would normally be.
What do you eat like on a daily basis? The viewers always love to know what a
Well,
guest eats in the day, typically.
yes, and I for that reason, for a while, especially during the pandemic, I was putting meals on Instagram, which they're still on there, and I'm going to get back to that. Um, but I start off with oatmeal. I love oatmeal. Steel cut. I can't find oat groats. You might help me with that because
Wait, oat
Dr. Greger.
groats? You can't find oat groats.
Well, no, I can't.
Okay,
What's
I haven't honestly, I haven't we live in the same area. I haven't seen them. Maybe the co-op has them, but I just buy them on Amazon, an organic brand. I'll send you the link, but that's where I get them.
Yes, because I went on Amazon. I use Amazon from time to time, and I went on there and I put in oat groats, and the most I could get was steel cut. So maybe I'm not right wording, but yeah, send me a link, please. But yeah, I love oats, and I steel cut, and I load it up. I do a couple of berries every day. I usually throw them in with the oats, and I throw in a handful of walnuts, for the absorption of the A, D, and E, those fat soluble vitamins. Throw in cinnamon. So it's really loaded oats and usually some Ezekiel toast. I don't put any butter on it. I like Ezekiel toast dry, whether it's the raisin cinnamon or whether it's just the sesame. And that's usually my breakfast. I am addicted to a cup of carrot juice. Fresh, untainted carrot juice is sweet. It's like a shake to me. And I know, without, they'll say, the expert extremes will say, okay, well, that's juicy. You lost the fiber and blah, blah, blah. But I'm having a ton of fiber with my steel cut oats and my berries and nuts and all that. So I think, okay, I got enough fiber to have that nice, sweet, naturally sweet cup of carrot juice. I have that every day. And interesting thing about it, I used to wear glasses and contacts. And about a year and a half going plant based, I went to my doctor because my vision was getting blurred. And do you know, Chef AJ, it was because my vision had corrected.
Wow.
I went through more than 25 years requiring glasses. It started in medical school, staring at those books all night long, and I needed glasses. And now for the last several years, I've not needed glasses day, night, and it has been since I went plant-based. Not everybody experiences that, but I did. So it's it's a wonderful thing.
Nice. Okay, thank you. Oh, you know what? I just saw a comment in the chat from Sid who said that you recently gave a great talk on how to get sick less, where you focused on the immune system, apparently. Maybe you could tell us if we can see this talk, where we can see this talk, and if not, maybe a few spoiler alerts.
Okay. Well, this was on plant-based support. It was formerly known as PBNSG, Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group, but it can be found now online at community.pbs.org, community.pbnsg.org, Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group, old name.org. And so that's a wonderful community. It's a $10 a month membership. There are some free community presentations once a month. But that's where you'd have access to not only my previous presentations, as I've given them on some other topics too. This month I'm doing one on Alzheimer's from the immunologist lens, and I'll be talking about about the mechanisms of how that fits in with immunology and the inflammation of Alzheimer's, and what foods you can take, and some recent research about it. Spoiler alert, they found that riboflavin, riboflavin in one research article, that riboflavin tends to reduce that risk. Well, that's one of the B vitamins. I think it's B2, or I believe it's B2. But riboflavin, which you can find in a lot of the foods plant-based people eat. And they've also found that lithium, not at doses that they use for manic depression, trace doses that you can find in some foods like almonds. And so by tailoring our food a little more, depending on what our interests are, we can reduce risk, like for Alzheimer's. And for the immunology, yes, immunology is the underpinnings of inflammation. You say inflammation, you're talking about white blood cells and how they behave, and how they can be overactive, and how there can be cross reactivity. I'm sorry about the background noise. All of a sudden, we have we have landscaping going on here. Um,
I don't hear it, so it's probably
Oh,
okay.
good, good. Okay. But yeah, so immunology is really foundational to a lot of things that we experience, not the least of which is COVID, but certainly with Alzheimer's, and with many other conditions, um, immunology is a factor. And so you hear all the time, how do you support? How do you boost your immune system? Well, eating plant-based is a great start. And avoiding dairy is a great start. And avoiding meat, things that are pro-inflammatory, that tend to drive your immune system in the wrong direction, are important. And then there are other more specific things like eating those green leafy vegetables, eating beans. That's the underpinnings of the 5 blue zones. What do they all have in common? In Loma Linda, California, here in Costa Rica, and Sardinia, Italy, Icaria, Greece, uh, Okinawa, Japan. They all had in common that they ate beans. So beans help your immune system. How? Through the microbiome. And remember, 70% of your immune cells, including something called Treg cells. These are T lymphocyte cells that regulate your immune system. Why would they be so important? Because an unregulated immune system can be overactive. What can that cause? That can cause allergies. That can cause psoriasis. It can cause rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. What does underactive immune system allow for it to happen? It can cause rogue cells to cause tumors and cancers. And so those Treg cells are really important to control how your immune system responds. And about half of them are in your colon, in your intestines. So what you eat makes a big difference. And by making sure you get that B12 too, blood vessels and nerves, that's important. There's not many supplements a whole food plant-based person has to take. The B12, vitamin D, if you're not getting much sun, are probably very important. But yeah, that's kind of that's most of what I reflected the importance of plant-based eating, and eating certain foods like the greens and beans being very important. Mushrooms, Very important. Mushrooms are anti-cancer. Mushrooms have fiber. Some of them have vitamin D. Some of them can preserve brain neurons. So mushrooms. That's why I think Dr. Joel Furman put it in his G-bombs acronym. Greens and beans and onions and mushrooms and seeds. And I think that that's a good model for your immune health. Also.
Thank you. One of the live viewers has a question. How much water should we drink every day? And when on a plant-based diet, and is it possible to drink too much water? And what happens if you drink too much water?
Okay. I found by listening to a lot of my mentors, my online mentors, experts, nutritional experts, that you don't always get the same answer. There's that old 8 glasses a day, which is interesting. Dr. Will Boltzowitz, who I love, is GI, plant-oriented, plant-based GI specialist all over the internet. He's often on the exam room. He had recommended, he had actually stood behind getting in the 8 glasses. Whereas there are other doctors other experts that have said, well, when you eat plant-based, you're eating food that is mostly water. So you may not necessarily need the 8 glasses when you're doing that cup of berries in the morning and you're eating those plants. So I fall somewhere in between. I think trying to get in about 6 to 8 glasses is good because water is the universal solvent. It allows you to get those nutrients to those peripheral tissues, and it's hard to overdo it. Usually, your body tells you, but can you overdo it? Yes. There's something called hyponatremia, where you drink so much water, your sodium level goes down, and that can cause all kinds of problems, including irritability of your heart. And you might faint. There's a lot of different things that can happen. And so you don't want to overdo it. But most people aren't overdoing it in this country. Most people need to hydrate more. Dr. Will Boltzowitz said one way to think about doing it is, somewhere 20, 30 minutes, before each meal, drinking a glass or two of water, a couple of glasses of water. That's six if you eat 3 times a day, and then another one somewhere, after dinner. But I know everybody has a story. My story is I have a large prostate and I get up already 2 or 3 times a night. So I don't want to be drinking water too much after dinner because I get a lot of water from the fruit and veggies I eat. So it may differ from person to person, but I think the 6 to 8 is a good working formula. And realize you are getting, if you're plant based, you're getting a lot of water from your food. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep, eat your water. You then, if you eat your water and you're not eating processed foods or animal products which don't have water and fiber, then you don't have to drink as much water.
That's right. That's right.
Nice, nice. What You aren't in private practice anymore, but do you coach people? Can people work with you, or what is
Yeah,
your days
I'm
look
glad.
like?
I'm glad you asked. There are two major focuses in my life right now. One is the plant-based support group I mentioned, and where I'm a specialized host once a month, presenting, and I participate in a lot of their other events. And the other is I'm medical director for an organization called Healthy Living with a Vision Foundation, and we do in-person and online events to bring information and services to underserved communities. Right now, physically, that in person, it's in the Chicago and greater Chicago area. I was just in Chicago in October for an event where it was a blood drive combined with a health fair, and I gave a talk about prostate cancer and nutrition. And there was two other panelists that spoke about some other topics, and we flew in a chef that contributed to my book, Chef Dom, who is out of LA, has a online um, business, Solistic Foods, and he did the chapter, but he also flew. We had him come in and do plant-based cooking lessons. So 15 people got up close and personal with this professional plant-based chef, Chef Dom, and it was received so graciously. So we will likely do that on an annual basis. So as medical director and programming chair for this foundation, that's keeping me busy, as well as the plant-based support.
Nice. All right. And you have a 4-year-old granddaughter probably that keeps you
Oh
busy.
yes, she keeps me very busy. And I was blessed 2.5 months ago with another grandchild, my son in Seattle. So I go to Seattle more often now to see a grandchild that was recently born, and I'm very happy about that.
Nice. Well, congratulations. So, when people adopt a plant-based diet, are there any labs that they should be particularly checking, especially if they're over 60?
I am a staunch believer of integrative nutrition. So that's integrating some of these what they used to call alternative, still call alternative concepts with conventional. So I heavily believe, I strongly believe in screening exams, prostate, things like that. And I think you should get a blood test. The number one killer in this country is related to heart. So we need to know our lipid profiles, and we need to be aware that sometimes we may need to ask for our doctors to go a step further, to ask for that lipoprotein little a, you know, because that's got not in the standard profile, but about 1 in 5 people have that. And a plant-based diet may not be enough. Plant-based lifestyle may not be enough if you have that lipoprotein A in as driving your cholesterol. And so I think those screening exams are important. It's important to know what your blood sugars are, although for type 2 diabetes, often by time it's involving the abnormal labs, it's been there for a while in the form of insulin resistance. So I think going to doctors that are oriented to lifestyle and diet, doctors that are related, that have a background, perhaps certification from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, or like the doctor we discussed before we came on, who understands the concepts of plant-based. I think that helps. But if you don't have one, you can help that doctor. Give them some information from pcrm.org. They have things you can download or you can link and send to your doctor to to encourage them to learn more about nutrition. Because learning about nutrition is not in the DNA of most medical schools. I went to a pretty competitive medical school, Washington University, and uh, the amount of nutrition we learned was probably could put in 2 hours. So, so
Yeah. Yeah. 2 hours in 4 years.
yeah,
Woohoo.
yes, we
That's
learned a lot about pharmaceuticals.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yep. Well, I mean, this is controversial, but I've read with good sources that some of the curriculums of some medical schools are actually controlled by the pharmaceutical industry.
sadly, yes. But you know what's even worse, Chef AJ, is that we doctors are required to have continuing medical education. They call it CME, right? And I don't think I'm out on a limb to tell you that that CME we have to get, which is about 50 hours, 25 to 50 hours every year. Most
Wow.
doctors will spend a week somewhere once a year to get all their credits and be able to remain licensed in their specialties. Do you know that they are all, I don't want to use a broad brush, but they are practically all sponsored by pharma. We have big rooms, big banquet rooms where they're set up 50 different stations of pharmaceutical, medical device. We go by and they give you all kinds of stuff and then take you out to dinner and all that. There's something called the Sunshine Act that came about almost 20 years ago to cut back on a lot of that stuff. But the influence of pharma is still very high.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, most doctors aren't plant-based doctors, and people that are plant-based don't always get to go to doctors that are plant-based. So, what tips do you have for them to be able to get like their doctor to accept their lifestyle changes without being dismissed? Because a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, you need more, you can't get enough protein on a plant-based diet, or your sodium's too, things like that that they hear over and over."
Yes, and that's very frustrating. I'm so glad that people like Dr. Michael Klepper are going to medical schools now and making a difference, driving medical schools to make put more attention to what's happening in their curriculum, nutrition training. Um, but for those that have doctors already that are out and probably aren't getting much in the way of nutrition education, and where they're getting it is where you get it, right? They can get it online and whatever YouTube they listen to. But what you can help your doctor, I think PCRM.org is a great resource. You can get your doctor to buy into that. The website they have a compendium for doctors to learn about this. And if your doctor's closed-minded to it, I don't think there's anything wrong with finding another doctor
Yeah.
because
Oh my
it's
gosh,
supposed
this is so funny. My Instagram, sorry to interrupt, says Dr. Clapper just joined. His ears must have been ringing because you literally just talked about him.
Yes, I was at the Plantrition conference and Palm Springs, which is why I'm right here now, Chef AJ, because really I give you kudos. You know, it's not that you found me and found my book and selected it, right? You donated to this incredible organization that provides information. We're talking about doctors training, but the Plantrician Project trains doctors and other allied health and people in the health field to recognize and understand nutrition. And you donated for that by a bidding to be able to be on your show.
Absolutely. I
And
don't I don't take a dime. I do this every year for Plantrition. It's a lot of fun because you get some great guests without having to go look for them.
well, I'm giving you all the credit because
Thank you.
really, there were two purposes for me, sir. For selfishly, there was a purpose of me being able to be in the same virtual space with you, which I don't know if I could accomplish that otherwise. You're so busy. So that was just fulfilling for me. And secondly, I won't tell the dollar figure, but Plantrician Project got a nice donation. I mean, that's wonderful.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure,
Well, I'll
sure.
tell you, instead of being in the same virtual space as me, if you're free and in town this Saturday after Thanksgiving, you can be in the same physical space as me because we have monthly potlucks, at least monthly, and this one will be not too far from you, actually in Carmichael.
I will take you up on that. I see the Carmichael signs every time I'm driving around Watt and somewhere, But yeah, I will definitely take you up on that. Thank
That's
you.
amazing.
And
Thank
and
you.
kudos to Dr. Claire Klepper. I mean, gosh, he does so much. I've learned so much from him. I mean, he's one of my top five mentors. So
Nice, nice.
yeah.
Well, we have time maybe for one more question, and I'm curious. We've got the Thanksgiving holiday coming up in a few weeks, and that's a time where a lot of people, whether they're plant-based or not, fall off their healthy eating. Any advice on how maybe to stay on track, or if they do fall off, how to get back on?
Yes, that's a tough one. And we actually just devised a sub-community in the plant-based support group that is a space for people to just share their experiences and their feelings entering these holidays, where many of us are on islands and the only ones eating plant-based. And so, really, the key is support. Support is so important. Finding I mean, if it's not plant-based support, somewhere where you can get the support, and discuss, bare your heart, because these are tough times, and often they're tough times not just because of that. It may be tough times because these are, their loved ones that were here last year that aren't here now, and there are things going on now, social politically that make it tough. There's some people that aren't getting, their SNAP. There's all kinds of stuff going on, and so having the support is really important. Learning more is really important. Being prepared. If you're going to go somewhere where there's going to be limited choices, there are a couple of things to think about. Eat before you go. So you won't be starving. I've done that many times. I will eat a meal before I go somewhere where I know they're going to be serving food that's not going to be in my best interest. The other thing is, if it's not offensive, take the food with you. Take a
Hmm.
snack with you. Take a dish with you. You can do those kind of things to kind of ease that, because you're not. The thing is, when you go to these functions, often, even though they're surrounded, the central part of it is food. Really, you're going there for the relationships, right? You're going there to talk with people and interact with people. And one thing I found that is that people that are thriving, that are on this course, like you, Chef AJ, is that we have deeper relationships, and we we know that we can enjoy just being around people without focus being on the food we're eating. And so I think, with that kind of mindset and preparation, it gives you the best chance to have a good time.
Right. No, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. I hope to meet you in person in a few weeks because we are practically neighbors. Other than getting your book, Fearless Wellness, is there any way people can connect with you on social media or like that?
Yeah. I appreciate you asking that. Yeah, I have a number of handles. There's my website, fearlessmd21.com. And so that's kind of easy to remember, that acronym, fearlessmd21. The 21, I couldn't use just fearless. It was already taken for that. But the 21 is the year that I launched the website. So fearlessmd21.com. There's also healthylivingwithavision.org, our charitable foundation, which we encourage donations for that because we're really trying to help the underserved community. So healthylivingwithavision.org. And then I have a Facebook page called Mindful Eating and Nutrition. And so I post a lot of things on there. I have more social media handles, but I think that's enough.
Okay. Well, everything you said is right below this video in the show notes if they click more.
Great. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you
All right.
so
Well, thank you.
much.
So nice to meet you, and I hope to see you again.
Pleasure was all mine. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dr. Thompson, and
All right.
thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ and Friends. Come back in about an hour for Chef Amber. She is the pastry chef on the vegan cruise, the Holistic Holiday at Sea, and she's going to be making some amazing desserts. Take care, everybody.